out, and away we go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. Here with all the boys. Nice to have everyone together again. And today we're talking about the British Grand Prix. And before we get into it, show of hands, who cried?
Because this is an audio podcast, I'm going to
put my hand. I know. I'm going to
raise my hand.
realize that afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, I did not
raise
cry
my
now.
hand.
Who teared up a little bit? You teared up? You get a little misty? Nothing.
Not
Just
even.
cold-hearted. Could not. Nothing.
You know what? I'm going to tell you why. And I think that's
Please
an
tell me
interesting
why.
story.
All right.
So I was watching the first 32 laps of the race, and then I had to work, unfortunately. And what happened during the end of the race is everyone on social media knows me as the F1 guy. So the race result was ruined immediately.
Oh, that's terrible.
Upon watching the real race, I had already knew who won, but that's all I knew. I didn't know how it was going to happen, so I was still entertained. But ultimately, I had already known the result beforehand. So, yeah.
I had a similar story. I didn't actually watch it live. I was, out of town for a wedding, and we were driving back during the race. My wife was scrolling on her phone, in the passenger seat, and she's like, "Did Lewis Hamilton win?" I was like, "Stop! Don't say another word. I don't want to know. I have it recorded. Shut your mouth and wait till we get home."
At least she posed it as a question, though. She posed it as a question.
She did, because she just saw and I thought maybe it could have been any trophy. It could have been second place or third, and she wouldn't have known the difference, right? So I was like, all right, maybe I'm going to retain a little bit of mystery. But it was a bit of a spoiler. And then Mercedes sent out an email, which I stay off socials, but I got an email from Mercedes F1 saying, "Get in there, Lewis." I was like, all right, well, now I know. But it was still, I still found it surprisingly emotional for a guy who has won 103 previous races. I know there's, a different meaning behind it because of how everything went down, after his last almost title win and not being able to win in the last 2 years. But it was really, really nice to see. And, it was a well-earned victory from the whole team, right? I know they won 2 weeks in a row now. Obviously, George's circumstances are a little bit different. But Ed, what's your thoughts on the race?
Honestly, it wasn't just the Hamilton win. It was a lot of different things. It was just it was nonstop action. And the Hamilton win was just the, the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, whatever cliche you want. But at some point in the race, I was looking at who was leading. I think it was George, then Lando, or George Russell, I think, Hamilton, and then Lando, or I might mistaken the order on that one. I think it was midway through the race, and I was like, is this going to happen? Is it going to be an all British podium? I was hoping that was going to happen, and then the masterful stroke of Max about calling the inters earlier than everyone else. Everyone does look at the Hamilton win, but don't skip on Max, because with everything else that's been happening and the way he got back and the way he was able to get podium amidst everything that happened to him, I was super impressed. Then Ferrari, and then all that other stuff, and then how Lando looked like he lost someone or he lost himself. He looked so disappointed at the end of the race. Felt bad for the dude, but that should have been a win for him.
Probably the best race in the last 2 years that I have seen, hands down. It was so much action, so much different strategies. The weather played a role. The result was actually unknown until the very last couple laps. I am so happy for Lewis. Max fucking did an amazing job as well. Him recovering that we went back to the same Ferrari strategist, pulling on a clown move and failing that. Heartbroken for McLaren with their wrong, not necessarily wrong strategy, but not the right choice of tire picking for Lando. That could have been played out better, but overall, a very, very exciting race. I loved it. If every race would be like that, I think the sport as a whole have way more fans than it currently has. But yeah, hoping to see way more fights like this in future races. So loved it.
Yeah, taking what I learned out of this race was obviously when weather goes wet, dry, wet, or dry, wet, dry, we have some real team calls that come into play. We go back to Canada and we watch a couple of the teams make some calls, right? And McLaren obviously botched it the first time with Lando and not pulling him in Canada. And then we come back here and, I think McLaren had an opportunity to double stack with Piastri, and they left the poor bugger out on slicks for another lap in the rain. And, he lost, I want to say, like close to a dozen seconds that lap, right? Which put him right out of contention. And I think he slid right back in sixth place. And, that's just a bad call, right? And then you have a team, on the polar opposite end of that. Well, maybe not polar opposite, but on the opposite end of that of Red Bull, who, like, I would argue they don't ever seem to make mistakes. And when they do make mistakes, they make sure it's on Checo's car. And they try out the strategy with him because when he's in 18th and 19th place and arguably the second fastest car on the grid, that's where you try out all the errors. So they were putting him on inters and whatever, like way too early. And you know what? They had an opportunity to learn some lessons on what not to do with Checo. And, and then you have teams like Ferrari who have, up until the last couple of races have been making amazing strategy calls. They've been so strong with everything. And I just think that, like, I don't know what's fallen off in terms of where Ferrari's going right now, but Mercedes has been making some solid calls. They have been splitting what's been going on with George and Lewis, which I think helps. And, they were able to pull off that absolutely critical double stack and got it done. Everyone had a shot coming out. Obviously it's unfortunate that Mr. Georgie Porgy had some engine failure or whatever happened with that DNF and pulled him out of the race. But I think he had an honest shot for podium that race, if everything remained constant. I think if the race was 5 laps longer, that Max probably still would have won this because he was kept catching up to Lewis very, very, very quickly at the end there. But, Lewis knows the track. He knows how to push, knows when to pull back a little bit. And, it was a fantastic win. It was, it just showed his absolute dominance on that track, and he knows how to run in the wet. And I think that that's a skill that these guys, some of these younger bucks don't know how to do yet. He's had, 14 years at it over some of these young cats, right? So hats off to Lewis. I think it was a fantastic race. Big ups to Max Verstappen from getting back to second place. I think it was an absolute menacing drive from him, and I expect nothing less. And it's unfortunate that Lando and Oscar were dealt a shitty hand because of some bad calls that McLaren were making.
I think you all make a really good point that this race was probably one of the most evenly contested races across, the paddock, at least for the, top 3 teams. No catastrophic, I know George had an equipment failure, but for the most part, it was very much down to driver performance and team performance. And it was nice to see those top three teams really compete at that level. And at the end of the day, Mercedes, Lewis, they made the right calls at the right time. They came into it with the right strategy, and he won for sure. But Max catching up at the end, that added another layer of intrigue to it. There was, so much going on in this race, which was aided by the weather. Do we think, we're going to kind of go back a little bit, completely dry race? Does Lewis still come out with the victory on this one?
Nah, man.
No.
Yes?
I can't say yes. I can't say
no?
yes.
Okay. No?
I'd be a solid no on that one.
No, I don't think Lewis would have came on top. I think it would have been a different winner on the podium for first place. I think the weather played a significant role with the strategy and the racing itself.
I think Lando would have had a better shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even coming out of quali when they, Mercedes at least had the two fastest cars on the grid in dry conditions, we still think they wouldn't be able to hold that pace during the race.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know if they're there yet.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, you know what? We'll never know. It doesn't matter. A stupid question on my part. Let's go back and talk about the rest of the grid. Really quickly, let's talk about some more performances. So much to talk about. Haas had an impressive weekend. We can talk about McLaren's mishaps in a little bit more detail from the strategy side of things. Really quickly, let's go over some winners and losers for this past race. Ed, you want to start us off?
Winners and losers. For me, biggest winner would have to be Hamilton and Mercedes in general. Kind of showed the perfect storm. They were able to get the strategy right, and be able to come away with a win, and their dominance was kind of really showing for this one. But I totally agree with you guys too that they're not really there yet, but specifically for just this race, that's a good win. And I basically I think if they continue on this trajectory, 2025 and 2026 is going to be an interesting few seasons. So looking forward to that. Biggest loser would have to be Lando and McLaren. They messed up holding Piastri out and not doing the double stack like the way Mercedes did. Because had they double stack, Piastri wouldn't lose 20 seconds. He'd lose 2-3 seconds at the most. And he would be either able to defend for Lando and possibly even win podium. So, yeah, it was unfortunate for them, but looking forward to how they're going to perform the next few races, with their continuous pace and the way they're driving. Both drivers are fantastic. Thomas, what do you think?
It's such a hard question. I think biggest winner would be Mercedes and Hamilton as well. Just phenomenal drive. But not to sound the same. Some honorable mentions are definitely Haas as well. Just the way they performed as well. Incredible. Don't know what happened there, but wow, they're really stepping up to the game. Biggest loser for me personally would have to be Checo. I don't know what's happening with him, where his confidence went to it. It's clearly not the car, it's him. And being in a Red Bull, and what did he finish, 16th or 17th, if I'm not wrong? That's embarrassing, man. I don't know where is his problem and what he needs to do to get back on the horse and ride it, but whatever he's not doing, it's not good. Not a good outlook for Red Bull as well, because both cars need to be performing and scoring, and only Max is essentially carrying the team so far this season.
Yeah, I'm going to jump on that. You know what? You guys have talked about a lot of the big guys up top, but you know what? Let's discuss Aston Martin, right? We got Stroll in 7 and Alonso in 8, and I think that's a fantastic outing for them, despite what they've been able to pull off recently. So I think one of the big winners is going to be Aston Martin this weekend. Namely Lance Stroll, because we shit on that guy a lot, and got 7th place over Fernando, and I think that was a good outing for him. And biggest loser, I'm not going to pick on Checo today, despite that being the easy one. I'm going to pick on Charles Leclerc, because I think he just had an absolutely awful weekend, one to forget. Obviously there was a strategy call that affected his race in a big way, but ultimately he wasn't looking so hot during qualies anyway, and I'd like to discuss this a little bit more in depth, but I think Ferrari's been struggling, and some of their upgrades haven't really been upgrades lately. So I think they need to dial in that car a little bit, bring it back to some of that Monaco form that they were on earlier on in the season. And those two drivers are fantastic, and they're driving the tires off those cars, but I just don't think they're there yet. So yeah, those are my winners and losers, buddy.
So let's jump into that then. Let's talk about Ferrari, and let's talk about Leclerc a little bit, because I think this is a good segue. They have been nowhere over the last few weeks, nowhere meaningful, at least, and nowhere you would expect them to be, particularly Leclerc. And this was a question that came in on the Discord as well, through the box, really trying to understand what has happened to his performance since Monaco. It feels like that performance, that race, there was so much emphasis put on, how he performs at Monaco at this home race, historic, blah, 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 blah. But now he seems to have completely fallen away from that form, or the car has at least. And to go from such an ecstatic high of, winning your home race, not dissimilar to what, happened with Lewis this past weekend at the British Grand Prix, to now just being relegated to a slow car, B, some shoddy strategy calls. They let go, or he stepped down their chief aerodynamics engineer. I think that's who it was, right? Just stepped down recently. So, heads are rolling and changes are being made. But where is Leclerc in all this, and what does the rest of his season look like?
You know what? I was just taking a look back at what the last, results were from him since Monaco. And you got the Canadian Grand Prix, which was after Monaco, and he finished out of the points in a DNF. And then we had the Spanish Grand Prix, which is his best result since, which was, in fifth place. Austrian Grand Prix, he finished outside of the points. And then the British Grand Prix, he's virtually been, like you said, he's been virtually outside of everything. And do I know what happened? I don't know. I suspected, and I wasn't sure how, real this could be, but did Ferrari kind of point that car in the direction to win Monaco, to have some higher curb height, to be better in the slower speed, and then, kind of drift away from that? Because that can't really be the case, but I can't think of another alternative in terms of them losing so much of what they had in the first half of the season, because they were looking spicy in every single race, which is, not your traditional tracks. And then they get to Monaco, which is the least untraditional track right now. And it's just been an absolute gong show since then. And I don't know if it's the pressure that got to him, if it was the high of winning such a race and then just not being able to live up to it. But I don't foresee Ferrari being too happy with Leclerc right now, because they've put all their eggs in that basket, right? They've already ditched Sainz, which is a whole other conversation. I'd love to know where Sainz is going, because I don't know if I'd want to be sticking around either, because Ferrari's trajectory is just up and down and up and down and all over. And it's just, they're not confident enough with what they're doing. They're not confident in the calls that they're making. And they're looking like the Ferrari of old the last couple of seasons, which is very, very sad, because I always love these guys, man. These guys ripping around in red it's fantastic to see Ferrari. And I was proud of them for some reason. Ferrari's not even my team, but I've been proud of them because they just finally looked like they had their stuff together, and it was really nice to see. And now we're not seeing it, and I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm going to do with my Ferrari polos, bro. I'm out.
No, I feel you, Drew. I mean, at this point, what they were trying to do actually was since Canada, Barcelona, and then when they went to Austria, it was, the setup was really bad. It was either Leclerc wasn't performing, Sainz was still performing, but not to the level of how we were seeing Ferrari in general prior to Monaco. But what they had done for Silverstone is they wanted to revert back. They scrapped all of the additional upgrades that they had and went back to the configuration in Imola. And guess what? It's still crap. So I think there has to be something wrong that is not privy to everyone else, either for real journalists like people from the race or aspiring journalists such as us. But I think at this point, that's where I want to ask the question, and this might be too soon. And Tomas, feel free to jump in on this one too. Did Lewis Hamilton make a mistake leaving Ferrari and now going into, or leaving Mercedes and now going into Ferrari? Because Ferrari feels like how they were back when Mattia Binotto was running the show. and all of the things that we told, or we spoke about rather, when Fred Vasseur was cleaning up house, hiring the right people, getting the right strategist, and then Enrico Cardile leaving. We don't know. We'll see what happens, but it's like I'm seeing deja vu. That's what I'm seeing right now with Ferrari.
Yeah, and you know what, Ed, I agree with you. I agree with the Drew as well. I think it's a perfect storm of things going wrong at Ferrari again. Just to both of your points, it seems like they dialed in the car for Monaco and kind of expected to work on basically every single other track, and then kind of left that and leave it for the best. Strategy calls again, not the greatest. Like going back to their old days again. Leclerc, like Drew, you said, Leclerc, hyped up for Monaco and now can't deliver. So that's definitely messing up with his head. Upgrades are not working. So it's a combination of multiple things, personnel changes. And I really don't know at this point in time what they need to do right in order to get back in the game, because whatever they're doing, it's clearly not working. And it's sad to see that, because they're not my top team either, but deep down I'm still rooting for them. I want them to be first, second, third, whatever, up there, and they're just not performing, or for Leclerc is not performing. And to Ed's point, I don't know what Hamilton is feeling right now. Do I think he regrets leaving Mercedes? No, because Mercedes was in that spot as well. They weren't performing, and he was just fed up and disappointed with them. And now, his first win, and he looks at Ferrari and where they stand, or again, Leclerc specifically, he's going to have some work to do. And the team around him, they're going to have to build a car for him in order for him to perform. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. At least I think it's going to be a challenge the first year he steps into that Ferrari. And we'll see what we don't know what to expect, and I'm sure he doesn't know either, hoping it's all the best. But it's an interesting place we see ourselves again, like literally deja vu with Ferrari.
So I was thinking about this question because I knew it's something we'll be covering today, given their recent performance. And the only thing I could really think of as it relates to Ferrari and Leclerc is that shortly after the Monaco Grand Prix, Drew and I entered applications for membership to the Scuderia Ferrari Club of Toronto. It's the second largest Ferrari club in the world. And the only thing that really makes sense to me is that they saw those applications come in because they get sent to Italy, they get sent to the racing team, and they saw the co-hosts of F1 True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast, applying to be part of that club, and they just got shook. And the pressure just got to them, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do themselves. It was just like too much. They kind of like mind blown. Like, what is happening here? Like now we've hit the big time. And that was it. That or Leclerc's ice cream business is just blowing up and it's taking up too much of his attention. But one of those two things, I'm pretty sure, is the solution. So maybe we should rescind our memberships for the betterment of the racing team. I'm willing to do that, Drew. I don't know about you.
No, I really like the fancy yellow notebook they gave me.
Well, you can keep the notebook. Keep the notebook.
Oh yeah, I guess I can't come get it back. Woo!
Nah. All right, let's move on. New segment we're going to try out today. It's called "What Are the Chances?" I'm going to throw out 3 scenarios. There it is. I know that's good, Drew, for a podcast. Show them the yellow book.
It was for you guys. It wasn't for them.
Oh, okay.
Them being the audience. It was for you guys.
New segment. What are the chances? I'm going to throw out 3 scenarios, and you're going to tell me what are the chances of these things happening. It's a fun little way to jump
percentages?
Around. We're looking at it. You can answer it however you want to answer.
Oh, okay.
Whatever. Straight from the heart.
I'm loving that.
Straight from the heart. All right. First up, what are the chances Perez has a seat by the end of the summer break? Drew.
Ooh, I like that. That's a spicy question right now. Checo Perez has been choking Perez. He's been absolutely choking on you know what? He signed the contract and was like, I'm good. And took his foot off the gas, literally and figuratively, does not care. Like, can't string quali together, can't string a race together, can't fight back above 10th place. He has been out of the points. I don't know if they're sandbagging this poor bugger, but like, he is just out of shape in every sense of the word. And I think that Helmut Marko and the higher ups at Red Bull are not too happy about this. I know I've seen some rumors around, social media is talking, and I just think that there are so many options that Red Bull has. Like, they can go to Liam Lawson, they can go to a Yuki Tsunoda, and I think their biggest option is probably Danny Ricciardo. I think Danny Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda would both be, as Max wants to know, is it Max approved? And I think that they are. I think that they would fall in line. I don't know about Liam Lawson. I think it's too early to say. I think he's a young gun and has something to prove and might kind of push back. But I think Yuki Tsunoda and I think Danny Ricciardo or Max Verstappen approved in terms of a second seat for Red Bull. And if Checo doesn't show up, I think that there's a very good chance Red Bull, historically has been very keen on doing that. They're just like, the halfway through the season, you're in or you're in the way. I was also kind of hearing on a podcast that I was listening to that, Checo's new contract has another clause in it that says if he's 100 points away from Max Verstappen in the championship driver series, that they had an option to exercise the contract and get rid of it. I don't know.
So what are the chances, Drew? Pretty good? Not so good? 50-50?
No, it's a 50-50. Yeah, it's a 50-50.
50-50? Okay. Ed, what are the chances?
There's a long-winded way to get around there.
Yeah, there's a long answer,
Well,
but thank you for playing.
For all of our avid listeners, they know that I said at the start of the season that Checo is not going to have a seat. I took my foot out of my mouth and said that Checo was going to stay because he was able to sign the contract. But hear me out. And this is going to be the contrary to what Drew had said. What if, because of the current pace and the current performance of the RB20, that they are using Checo as we have said earlier, that they're doing all the weird setups, trying to do. He is the test dummy, and Max Verstappen is going to be the single source of truth, and that's probably why he's not really performing that well, because he's given a crappy car. Because now they have him under contract. They made him happy, but there's a caveat. We're not performing well this year. We're going to use all of the experimental testing on you, on your car, on your set and the settings of your car. And it's not going to be beautiful, but you're just going to take it. And maybe he is. And maybe if you bring in, as you said, the max approval, you bring in Danny Ricciardo. It's not really performing that well, but they had friction before. You bring in Yuki Tsunoda. He's going to want to prove himself, so that's possible that there's going to be friction. And Liam Lawson, we all know he has an axe to grind for any seat in the grid. So he's going to prove himself regardless whatever happens. If he gets that seat, he's going to try. So to answer your question, Walker, is he going to have a seat at the end of the season? He will.
At the end of the summer break. So, yes, either way.
At the end of the summer break, he will still... No, all the way. All the way.
All the way. Okay. Thomas.
Yeah.
So as someone that likes Checo as a racing car driver, as a person, it kind of kills me to say this. I don't think he is going to have a seat till the summer break. If he is, maybe it's going to be one more race after the summer break till the decision is made. Agree with all your opinions. To kind of jump back on Ed a little bit, it's funny that you mentioned that. So essentially what you're saying is Red Bull essentially says, hey, Checo, we're giving you a contract 1+1, but you're also going to be our test mule. And if you bring in the points, great. Everyone's happy. If you don't, GG, man. Sucks to be you, essentially. So, and right now he's clearly not bringing in the points and not performing if he is being used as a test mule. I think the ratio, at first I was kind of thinking it would be as well like 50-50, but give it some more thought. I'm thinking 70-30, as in 70% he is not going to have a seat at the end of the summer break.
So I think there is a 0% chance that Checo is going to have a job by the end of the summer break. And I don't think that Red Bull can afford to use one of their cars as a test car, because they need those championship points, especially with 2 cars from McLaren coming on strong, 2 cars from Mercedes. Those dollars that they're going to earn by winning the championship or coming, presumably winning the championship is worth more than having a test mule in a Formula One paddock. That's what they have aerodynamic models for. That's what they have a simulator for. Checo isn't there to be a test driver, and I don't see his performances getting any better in the next 2 races, so I think he's out. That's what I think.
Can we discuss what a test mule is? Because I've never heard this term before. I've heard of a test dummy and I've heard of a mule, but I've never heard of a test mule. So can we just mule? Clarify? Yeah.
Yeah, it's correct me if I'm wrong. It's often like a term for like cars. Like if different manufacturers are prototyping cars and like they run them around. You'll see them in Germany with the camo
with
kind
the
of
black
wrap
and
on
white
it.
Stuff all over it.
Yeah, it'll be called
and
like a test mule.
A test mule.
Correct? Is that just me? You guys
test development mule.
Right,
oh my god, I am right now years old, and I am learning this.
Today years old. There you go. Yep, test mule. All right. Thought you were gonna call me out for being racist or something, but we're
no.
Drew,
we have the diversity higher. Right up
here,
this is true.
Insert the sound effects or the video. The more you know.
The more you know.
The more you know. There you go. All right, number 2. What are the chances Hamilton wins again this year?
10%. 10% chances.
All right. Ed, anything?
I'm going to say...
I'm looking at the calendar.
He's consulting the calendar.
Probably two more races.
He's going to win 2 more races? Oh my goodness.
So 100% chance he's going to win another race this year?
Yeah.
Okay. Like the way you think. Thomas?
I'm going to say 50-50. It's a hard one. I think part of it, he just got really lucky, right circumstances, right timing, right scenario that just happened this previous race. Is there a chance? Yeah, but there's also a chance he's not going to win, so 50-50.
But I'm going to say, I'm going to go with Ed. I was going to shoot a little bit lower here, but you've inspired me, my friend. I think he is 100% going to win another race this year, and I'm going to call it right now. I think it's going to be Brazil. There we go.
You think he's got some big race energy going on right now?
Calling my shot.
Like that, like he's like, okay, I can win again. I'm an old guy in an old car who's doing all right, but like, you think he's going to put some pep in his step?
You know what? I think given the kind of emotional release that he had after that win, I think it illustrates the amount of pressure that he was putting on himself and the amount of self-doubt that he probably felt over those last 2 years. Imagine winning year after year after year to just nothing, right? The amount of like self-doubt that must come in, second guessing yourself all the time. And I think this is really, reaffirmed a lot of the things that he was probably trying to tell himself over those last 2.5 years. And I think we'll see a different, I hope we'll see a different Lewis on a regular basis now with a more competitive car and getting his head back into that space where, he knows he can be a monster on the track.
I think you're spot on with that, dude. I think that watching him get all those demons out of that closet in terms of him, being able to realize that, because he's been struggling, even on a car-to-car basis against George. I think he's 8-2 or something like that in terms of qualies this year. And even at Silverstone, he was out-qualified by George for Saturday. And I think that all plays into it, right? Can I still do this? And, historically, you've also seen older drivers start qualifying slower and slower. Like that kind of just happens. Their race pace is fantastic, but you start to see them qualify a little slower. I think that just adds to it. It just compounds like the self-doubt and like, can I do this? What am I doing here? And then, him changing, drives for next year and heading to Ferrari, like that all has to play in. And I'm with both of you guys. Like, I think that there's an opportunity for Lewis to kind of shake all of this off, like all the monkeys he's had on his back for the last season and a half, and just get going with it.
We will see. And that, that's a good segue into my last, what are the chances? Really quickly, boys. What are the chances Mercedes takes P2 in the Constructors' Championship again?
30%.
They got a long way to go. They got a long way to go.
30%? They got a long way to go. Yeah.
All right. 30%. Ed?
I'd say 30% is too generous. I would say 20%. 20%. Like I mean, there's gonna be wins. But P2 constructors, there's too many. There's other teams that are like more consistent than they are. So I say 20%.
You know what? I was going to say 30% as well, but to not copy Drew and to not copy Ed, I'm going to stick it at 25. I don't see them having a high chance of them
meet in the middle.
Yeah. I don't have a high chance of them being second in constructors at all.
I'm going to say there's a 0% chance they're coming in P2 this year. I think too much ground to make up, and teams like McLaren are too competitive. So I don't think this is their year for it, but there we go. And that's our first installment of What Are the Chances?
What are the chances?
What are the chances?
Yeah, we'll get behind that, man. I'm all right. Just for everyone out there, we had no idea. Walker told us earlier today that he had a surprise for us, and I was pretty pumped about it. And before we started press record on the pod, we discussed whether or not we wanted to know about it, but he was going to surprise us. And you know what? I'm into it. I'm behind it. I'm here for it.
All right.
I like it.
Actually, Drew, I think this would be a good piece of content also for the socials as well. You know how you can choose and then just put it on Instagram and have the people join into the game. Like, what are the chances? Put it in there.
What are the chances?
Yeah, what are the chances?
A whole new social thing for this. Thanks for the new job, Walker.
There you go. Yeah, you need more to do,
welcome.
right?
Yeah,
you're welcome.
you need more to do. All right, boys, it's been a fun episode. We have Hungary coming up in 2 weeks. We got a bye week in front of us, which is going to feel a little weird, but we're going to do a full preview of Hungary coming next week. I think there's only one way to end an episode like this, and we're going to go from one segment to another, and that is name that sponsor.
Name that sponsor. That name again is name that sponsor.
Wait, who's leading right now?
Who's
still
leading?
Chris?
Hold on.
Probably Chris.
No, Chris is not. Let me double check.
The guy who comes on our podcast one time
and destroys all of us.
Yeah,
he is in front of Thomas currently, but that's about it.
Not a proud moment.
So,
not
a proud moment.
Not a proud
okay,
moment.
Man. This is we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. It's gonna be a renaissance week for you, Thomas. So for those of you who don't know, I'm gonna name some sponsors. The boys here have to tell me what team they're on and what the company does. So first up is, I presume it would be called Power, but spelled PWR. Power.
Sure.
Per.
Okay, let's go. They are a energy company, and they are going to be on Alpine.
All right.
I will go with energy drink or supplements.
Well, which one? Energy drink or supplements?
Yeah, it's true. That's kind of a cross thing. Yeah.
No, I'll say supplements, and let's say McLaren.
Okay. Thomas?
I'm going to say McLaren as well, but I'm going to say it is like a marketing software for businesses.
Got it. All right, you're all wrong. Power is a leading global gaming organization, and it unites some of the world's best gamers, creators, developers, and fans with captivating content, experiences, and elite gameplay. TeamPower.gg, for those of you that want to know.
Way off.
And it's on Red Bull.
Okay.
And it's on Red Bull.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe they're the sponsor of Max Verstappen's esports team.
Could be.
Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah,
it's
could
probably
be.
one of them. Probably one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next up. P448. P448.
They're going to be on Haas, and they are a engineering mechanics company.
Okay.
Steak Sauber. SaaS company.
Okay.
Red Bull and advertising. Something, again, advertising business.
And advertising?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. Still all wrong. It is P448 is a designer Italian sneaker company. Meticulous detailing and made in marche craftsmanship underscore the sense of luxury of each collection. P448.com. There we go. No, Visa V-Carb.
V-Carb.
Oh,
Okay.
V-Carb. Oh,
V-Carb.
AlphaTauri. Maybe.
Yeah, they're a carryover from AlphaTauri for sure.
Yeah.
Last for name that sponsor is Fix Network. Fix Network.
Fix Network is on Mercedes, and they are a tech software IT specialist kind of thing.
Okay.
Fix Network. I would say Red Bull, and they are a chain body repair for cars store or brand.
I am going to say McLaren, and they are a cloud-based company, kind of like Salesforce.
All right. Ed, coming in big for this one. You got the team wrong, so they are on Stake F1. But Fixed Network is one of the world's leading automotive aftermarket franchise networks for collision, glass, and mechanical repair services.
Yeah.
Based in Quebec, Canadian company too.
Hey, we likey.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hats off to Ed scoring the only point today.
The only point today.
Else. Oh my goodness.
Sponsor us.
That is
Sponsor
so, yeah, exactly. Sponsor us.
Yeah.
We're here.
And Chris
here
is still ahead of Thomas.
That's the best.
Gotta change that. Gotta change that soon.
Still.
Yeah. Still
right.
no studying.
Any
we have
day
a
now.
gentleman's agreement. We're not allowed to study these. Still,
No studying. No studying.
And you know what? It's very obvious that none of us are doing that.
Exactly.
We are been very obvious about that.
Oh, boys, that has been fun. That's been another episode of Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. I'm Walker, here with Drew, Ed, Thomas. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends, share. What else? Join the Discord. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, the Discord's popping these days. Hell yeah.
Discord.
Yeah.
Please join the Discord.
YouTube shorts are slapping too.
All right. Find us on YouTube, Instagram,
TikTok.
all the socials.
Yeah, hell
all
yeah.
the socials. All right. It's been fun, boys. Do this again next week.
Sir.
Ciao, ciao.
Peace.
It's lights out and away we go.